So the third Grand Prix of the 2020 Formula 1 season is finally over, and I'm going to be sharing all my thoughts and opinions on this Hungarian Grand Prix. Overall, the race definitely wasn't the best, but regardless, it was certainly a decent race at the least, and in my opinion, probably more exciting than last week's Styrian Grand Prix. So without further ado, let's begin by talking about the race itself, and the first major part of the race came before it had even begun. On his way to the grid, Max Verstappen, testing the limits of his Red Bull, caught some oversteer from the damp track and slid right into the barriers at turn 12, destroying his front left suspension. At this point, most people, including myself, thought that this was it for Verstappen. There's no way they'll manage to get that fixed before lights out. But unbelievably, the Red Bull mechanics somehow managed to completely repair his suspension on the grid just before the race began, which is just incredible. I honestly can't believe that. I mean, his suspension was completely snapped, so Red Bull's teamwork and coordination to get that fixed is simply outstanding. And their hard work eventually paid off, with Verstappen redeeming himself after that crash to take a brilliant P2, helping Red Bull to second in the Constructors. So anyway, moving on, and the first controversy of the race had to do with Valtteri Bottas and his apparent jump start to the race, which didn't end up helping him at all, but he managed to escape without a penalty. I know there was a legitimate technical reason as why he didn't get a penalty, but still, Bottas is definitely a very lucky man to get away scot-free. Now moving on from that, and the opening couple of laps were fairly uneventful. Not too much was happening apart from the odd overtake here and there, but on lap 5 we saw a certain incident in the pit lane between Nicholas Latifi and the man who never appears on TV, Carlos Sainz. Somehow Williams didn't see or hear the McLaren of Sainz behind them and decided to let Latifi go right as the McLaren was crossing past, causing Latifi to instantly get a puncture and eventually a 5-second penalty. I don't know what Williams were thinking in that moment, like how could they have not have seen the McLaren behind them, but anyway, it ruined poor Latifi's race. Moving on once again, and I want to talk about that epic battle between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, because it was some great racing, wasn't it? I thought Leclerc would have taken the McLaren down turn 2 and that would be that, but no, Norris managed to stay with him round the outside, with Leclerc gathering a touch of oversteer on the exit of turn 2, sliding into the McLaren, which could have easily ended in disaster for both of them if Leclerc was literally just a couple centimetres closer. But Lando Norris managed to hold the position until the next lap at the same place, where this time Leclerc takes the outside line and manages to secure the position into turn 3. What a great battle between them, and I really hope we see more of this from McLaren later this year and in future years to come. Moving on from that epic battle, and throughout the middle stages of the race, there wasn't as much overtaking action as there was strategy action. In particular, Haas nailed their strategy and were up in P3 and P4 for a bit, and eventually scored their first points of the season, with Magnussen finishing down in P10. And also Vettel had a great strategy call going onto the mediums early, and that really paid off for him, managing to finish the race with his best result of the season so far in P6. Another thing I want to talk about from this race is the drive from Lance Stroll in P4. I know Stroll is arguably the most hated driver in modern F1, but you gotta hand it to him, yesterday's drive was absolutely incredible. Racing Point really have been showing how quick they are recently. It's amazing to see them so far up the grid, and it's crazy if they continue with this rate of progression, they could be on for a win. Anyway, moving on once again, and another impressive drive in my opinion was Albon's charge up the field from P13 to P5. However, it still is unfortunate to see how far he is off Verstappen, and I think it will probably be quite a while before we see the second Red Bull seat on par with Verstappen pace-wise. Regardless though, it was good to see Albon making a couple of pretty good moves, and I think he definitely deserves that Red Bull seat. Something that wasn't good to see, however, was those awful AWS insights. Why do they exist? They are the most useless graphics in the world, and they're more confusing than they actually are informative. This is coming from someone who's relatively new to F1. I've only been watching for a couple years, but even so, I can see just how wrong they are. Look at this graphic, for example. How are Hamilton's 30-lap-old mediums somehow 70% on the front right, but 40% on the left and 50% on the back right? And how are Verstappen's tyres a lap newer yet so much worse? And again, why is the front right tyre in such better condition based on absolutely no evidence? Verstappen probably was pushing harder than Hamilton, degrading his tyres at a faster rate, but still these graphics are so weird and I don't understand how they came up with them. One thing I'm happy about is at least here in the UK, the Channel 4 coverage has a way less AWS insights than the Sky Sports coverage, so at least that's something. Anyway, moving on from that and coming on to the end of the race, Lewis Hamilton wins to equal Michael Schumacher's record of the most wins at the same racetrack, with Hamilton claiming 8 wins at the Hungaroring and Schumacher claiming 8 wins at Manicourt. Hamilton had an absolutely dominating drive yesterday, and it's scary how fast he and that Mercedes is in 2020. Anyway, to summarise this race, it certainly wasn't the best in the world, but it definitely was at least a decent race, with plenty of exciting moments, even though Hamilton dominated the entire thing. So anyway, to finish off this video, I want to go over my 5 predictions I made on the Hungarian Grand Prix, and wow, I almost couldn't have been more wrong. My first prediction was that the race would be incredibly boring, which thankfully I don't think was particularly true, so that's a no. My second was that a Red Bull would be on pole position, and that wasn't even close, so that's another no. My third was that at least one of the Ferraris wouldn't score points, which came true with Leclerc finishing down in P11, so that's a yes. My fourth was that Daniel Ricciardo would be best of the rest, which was close, he finished in P8, but ultimately that's still a no. And my final prediction was that Albon would make his debut podium in F1, and of course that was also a no. So looking back on those predictions, it's fair to say I did really badly, but these predictions are just to be a bit of fun to look back on after each race. Anyway, and now it's time for me to make 5 more predictions, this time for the 2020 British Grand Prix at Silverstone in just under 2 weeks, so let's begin. Prediction 1, it will be a Mercedes 1-2 finish. Prediction 2, there will be at least 4 retirements and 1 safety car. Prediction 3, one of the Ferraris will finish the race in 3rd place. Prediction 4, Carlos Sainz will be best of the rest. And prediction 5, both Williams will once again make it into Q2. But anyway guys, that's it for this video, sharing my thoughts and opinions on yesterday's Hungarian Grand Prix. If you want to tell your own thoughts on this race or leave any predictions of your own for the next race, feel free to leave a comment down below. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe, comment, share, and I'll be back in the next video. See ya!